if crude is a bubble because of cheap money, if oil prices were artificially inflated by the Fed, well, so were stock prices and real estate prices. So all these bubbles are going to burst because of the same pin, which is the Fed withdrawing the stimulus. And, people are talking about how falling oil prices are going to help the consumer. Well, look, oil prices fell from $150 a barrel down to $32 a barrel in 2008. That helped the consumer, too. But it didn't stop the financial crisis. It didn't stop the Great Recession. Look, when real estate prices went down, that helped the consumer, too, because now the consumer could buy houses for less money. But you had all this leverage that had been built up during the Fed-induced mania. So the same thing is happening now, and you're whistling past the graveyard if you think what's happening is good news.
I do, Peter. I give you credit, if not for nothing else, for being consistent. But how in the world do you reconcile that everything that's been pumped up, thanks to QE and thanks to our Federal Reserve, is going to come crashing down? You mentioned housing, the stock market, and crude oil. But how is it that gold, if you will, is going to avoid that? How is it that gold is Teflon? Well, first of all, gold has already come down from 1900. So gold has had a pretty big move from its high, right? So gold is not right on the highs like the U.S. stock market. So you've already had a discount. But we have printed a lot of money, and I believe the Fed is going to come back with QE4. If I didn't think QE4 was coming, if I actually believed that Janet Yellen was going to raise interest rates and shrink its balance sheet the way she pretends she's going to do, then I would be bearish on gold. But I would be more bearish on some of these other assets, which I think would fall even harder than gold. It's because I know that the Fed is bluffing. It's because I know they have no exit strategy, because exit is impossible. They're going to do QE4. Ultimately, what's going to collapse is the value of the dollar. The Fed is going to keep printing dollars to prop up assets until nobody will buy the dollar anymore. I mean, people are looking at the Russian ruble. If you're more, that's nothing compared to what's going to happen when we have a dollar crisis. And think about this: they just raised interest rates to 17% in Russia. How do you think the U.S. economy is going to handle 17% interest rates here if the Fed is forced to do that because the dollar is collapsing?
Scott, you wanted to follow up.
Peter, so you say that you're more bearish these other products, these other commodities. Does that mean you are now bearish gold, even if it's just a little bit?
No. If I thought the Fed was going to raise interest rates and shrink its balance sheet, if I believed what the Fed was saying, then I would be. But because I don't believe what they're saying, I know what they're going to do. Right? They are going to come back with QE4 as soon as they see this phony recovery fading. As soon as they get a good look at the GDP numbers that we're going to get in Q4 and Q1 from 2015, when they start to see the unemployment numbers really start to move back up. We've been getting mostly negative economic data today, including 2 big negative reports that came out. Nobody cares. They grasp on the few good pieces of news that come out every once in a while. But most of the data is bad. Anybody who wants to open their eyes and look can see that this economy, this bubble is deflating. And when the Fed has to acknowledge that the economy is much weaker than they thought, then they're going to come back with more QE. That's why I'm still very bullish